Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club podcast. I know, you guys might be surprised. It's not Dean's, strong, luxurious voice that is giving us the intro today, but this is because Dean's been prepping for this episode. This is the episode of his lifetime. He's currently in the corner shadowboxing right now. That's why I'm giving our intro. So, welcome to the Horror Club. Dean, what movie are we watching today?
This week we're watching one of the greatest films of all time, The Master is at play here with Sam Raimi's Evil Dead, starring Bruce Campbell, 1981. This movie is perfection. I love this film.
I'm not even going to ask you how you're doing because I know you're like, you just won the lottery.
Oh God, I adore this movie.
Yes, I know.
So much. Oh, okay.
You've been trying to get me to watch this movie since before we started dating.
Yeah. This is one of the movies that is like the litmus test of are you cool? Like, I show people this movie, I'll do the riff track, I'll do like the fucking side commentary, or I'll sit there quietly. Like, I bust this movie out at parties. I love this flick. I
mean, the only reason, I made the cool test with Dean is because I sat and watched The Room for him.
She did. That's when I knew you were the one. That's when I knew.
I love you too, Lisa.
Ah, so nice. You're tearing me apart, Lisa.
You're tearing me apart. Oh, hi, Mark. So, yeah. Evil Dead.
Yes, Evil Dead.
When was the first time that you saw this?
I was 9 years old. My parents... So, I was a huge horror movie geek growing up. Around the time I was like 8 or 9, I was getting into like horror flicks, like slasher flicks.
Yeah.
My mom really liked the Freddy Krueger franchise, so I had all the Nightmare...
Oh yeah, your mom loves horror movies.
My mom is a huge horror movie fan. My dad, not really. Basically, me and my mom are really into horror flicks.
Yeah.
My mom had all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I got, like, the Friday the 13th films when we went on a road trip once. My mom was just like, here's this and a portable DVD player that I got at a thrift store for like $6.
Yeah.
Watch these, don't say anything. We're in the car for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
And that was great. And I think it was Christmas. My dad was like, oh, okay, Dean, you're really into horror flicks, so I got you these. And it was Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, and Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn,
and Army of Darkness.
He got me those, the old Anchor Bay ones. They were like one of the first or second wave DVDs they ever made of them, so they were kind of poor quality. My dad loved the second one, so like I got the movies. My dad took the second one after I watched it once, and I've never seen it since. It's sitting somewhere in his room. It is gone forever. But I watched the first Evil Dead movie like on fucking repeat. Me and my brother to this day love Army of Darkness. That is one of the bro movies.
I mean,
that shit comes on, the day is done. Like, me and him are watching that.
Of the trilogy, that one's my favorite.
Yeah, not surprising. The series is great because the first one, it leans way more into the exploitation of the horror stuff.
Yeah.
The last one, Army of Darkness, leans way more into like the action and comedy.
Yeah.
And kind of the goofy aspects of the series. And then Evil Dead 2 sits right in the middle. It's still scary. There's still some horror stuff, but there's a lot more black humor. There's a lot more comedy. There's more action. And it's wonderful. The series like has evolved and it's like awesome. Even the remake. I even like the 2013 remake of this film. It is, I mean, honestly, it might actually be one of the best remakes because it does what we said in the Mummy flick, where take the broad strokes but change everything about it. And it was also the smartest decision of their life not to recast Ash Williams.
Yeah.
Bruce Campbell, that is his role.
Yes, it is.
There shall never be another Ash.
No.
If there is, I will boycott the film. Bruce Campbell is Ash until the end of time.
Yes.
And I think he just recently retired from playing him after they canceled Ash vs. Evil Dead, which I also watched, and it's great.
Well, isn't there a new one coming out on HBO Max?
I think there is. I'm not too sure. That one I haven't looked too much into because they keep saying there's going to be another Evil Dead thing that's going to revitalize the franchise, but I've always taken that with a grain of salt because I've had that pill swallowed like 6 times before.
No, I think it was like a big thing that they announced a couple months ago that HBO Max is picking it up, and I think if they're going to go the original route, I think he's going to come back for that.
Wouldn't surprise me. Bruce Campbell loves playing this character. I think he also, because he loves working with Sam Raimi, because unironically, they're like super best friends.
Well, yeah, they've known each other since what, high school or college?
Middle school, elementary. I think they grew up in like the same neighborhood. Like they were making like these little short films, like short horror flicks, since they were like in middle school.
On an old Super 8.
Old Super 8. Actually, the Evil Dead had its start as a Super 8 exploitation.
Yeah.
Like, it was like 30 minutes long, and I think it was called Into the Woods or In the Woods.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they used to sell to investors. Like, this is kind of what we're thinking of doing to make, Evil Dead or whatever. But yeah, sorry about that huge tangent, but I fucking love this movie. This movie's a masterpiece.
Dean is smiling so hard right now.
I love this movie. Like, it's just great. It's just the tops. It's so much fun.
Okay, so my next question, because I think, everyone wants to know this question.
Shoot.
How many copies of the DVD do you own?
Okay, so I still own my original Anchor Bay, like, first run of the film. I own the steel book. I think that one was like a 2014 like re-release. It was a really fancy copy. I really like that one. I own the VHS because somebody bought it for me.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And then I went out and bought the VHSs for Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness.
Oh yeah, we just got that at Awaken the Spirits Midsummer Scream.
Which is really cool. That was a really good con. But actually, I think that's it. I only own 2. No, I own a Blu-ray copy. I own a 30th or 40th anniversary Blu-ray copy.
And you also own one of those 3-packs where they have all 3 movies on the same disc. That is currently at my house.
Oh, yeah, you stole that from me. That's right.
No, you threw it at me and said, please, for the love of God, watch this.
Yes, watch this so I can finally, pop the question.
And I didn't watch it because I wanted to watch it on the big screen for the first time.
Yeah.
And oh my God, that was quite a movie to watch for the first time on the big screen.
Yeah, because we watched it at the Egyptian, if I'm not mistaken.
We did, in Hollywood at Grauman's Egyptian Theater. Mm-hmm. And that was a present for your birthday, I think before the world ended.
Yeah, it was like right before, because it was literally the last September before the pandemic.
Yeah, so we went in October to the Egyptian, and you were so excited. I mean, let alone for the screening at the Egyptian, they redid the score.
Yeah, they did a whole new score. They had a live orchestra to play for it, and like a live orchestra, not like it's a recording and then a recording of a live orchestra that they played one through. No, it was there. There was the quartet. They had the composer there, who was the original composer for the film.
Yeah,
who did a whole new score for it, and then he played it. He played it all the way through like a concert, and then he did it to the film, and it was so cool.
Yeah,
it was so much fun.
Yeah, that was something. Seeing it on the screen for the first time, because this movie
was a lot of fun.
This movie was done when they were in college, I think.
Sam Raimi got out of college, but he realized that if he wanted to make horror films, or if he wanted to make films in general, he had to figure out a way to turn a profit. The easiest way to do that was to sell it to colleges and do like college screenings, because back then, a college campus, you can basically show whatever and people would pay for it, and you get a cut of the ticket sales.
Yeah.
And the easiest thing to sell, period, is horror films. To this day, the easiest thing if you want to make movies is to make horror films, because they're so easy to sell. The market is huge, and they're super wide. You can make basically whatever. As long as it's a horror flick, in terms of genre, you can sell it.
Yeah.
So that's why Sam Raimi wanted to make Evil Dead, and it was actually going to be called Book of the Dead, but their producer was like, no one's going to want to read a movie. Call it Evil Dead. And then, yay, it was good. But yeah, he made it right after he got out of college. And it took him like 3 years to fucking make it, because they had to drive out to this literal abandoned cabin in the middle of the Tennessee mountains, and they did the principal photography, and they had to keep going back to do reshoots. Some of the actors had to like leave because, hey, I thought this was only going to be like a 3-week production, and I'm like 4 months into this shit. And that's why Bruce Campbell de facto became the lead character, because he was, Sam Raimi's best friend, and was like, yeah, I'll stay with you until the end, because I ain't getting any other work, dog. You're.
He also gave him money to keep the film going, which led to being Bruce Campbell, bumping up from an actor to co-producer of the movie.
Yeah. And it's also kind of why Bruce Campbell became one of the gatekeepers of the franchise.
Yeah.
Also because he's the lead character. He's Ashley Williams. Anytime they do more Evil Dead stuff, he has to be involved.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to do it. It's the John McClane effect. You can't make a Die Hard movie without Bruce Willis. It just doesn't work.
No.
But huge fan of this movie.
Yes, I know. You want to jump to characters?
Yeah. Where do you want to start? Because we got Scotty, Linda. We got Sally. We got Bruce playing Ash, who's glorious. Because Ash at the beginning of the movie is such a nerd. He is the guy that should be the first to die in every horror movie. And then you have Scott, who is the prototypical jock. I'm gonna live through this because I'm the hero. And this is like the 80s, man. This is how this works. And he's like one of the first people to actually like die.
Yeah.
I mean, his first is his sister.
His sister, yeah.
But she's like a dead eye, and she's doing the thing underneath the trap door in the basement, which is awesome.
I mean, her character's great. She's so entertaining throughout the movie.
And you know why that there's all that makeup on her? Is so they could have Sam Raimi's brother Ted Raimi put on the makeup when they had to get really rough. And
so he could take some hits?
So he could take some hits, or they had to put, like, smoke up into it. So that's why there's so much effects and makeup stuff on it, and the latex mask, is so that they could basically beat the shit out of it and not have to beat up the actress.
And since this was a low-budget movie, it was only one guy that was doing all the effects and the masks and the hands.
And all that. Yeah! This movie was so low budget, when they had to use the shotgun to, like, blow out windows and shoot stuff, they couldn't afford blanks.
Nope.
That was a real shotgun. They would set up the camera, set up whatever Ash was shooting, and then tell everybody, all right, everybody, back away 30 feet to the right, and we're going to yell at you, Bruce, to just go for it.
Yeah.
And Bruce was like, all right, cool, I'm from Michigan, and I kind of know how to use this. And they would shoot a live shotgun on a film set. You can't do that anymore. You would be sued into the ground. But this movie is great. This movie is the epitome of just raw filmmaking, like, never say die attitude, like, personified. Also, another thing, Ted Raimi is credited as fake Shemp in this movie, because every time you see a close-up of somebody's hands when they had to open something or move something, that's Ted Raimi's hands. Because usually the actor was gone.
Yeah.
So that's why he's credited as fake Shemp. And he is the fake Shemp in every Evil Dead movie.
Okay.
Because he's, like, the stand-in for, like, oh, we need a close-up of somebody opening a door and we need their hand. Ted, get over. He's like, all right, gotcha, cool. Yeah, it's just a funny thing, because, we have Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, Tappert, and Ted Raimi, and they're, like, the four of crew that just made movies for fun in high school. And then they struck it big, so more you know. I love this movie. I'm going to end every one of my paragraph-long rambles with, I love this movie.
Every sentence is going to be ended with, you love this movie.
I love this movie.
And then we have the love story between Ash and his girlfriend.
Linda. Yeah.
Linda. And
who changes in every movie. She
does. And she takes a nasty pencil to the ankle.
Okay, did you cringe for that one?
I cringed throughout the entire movie.
It's so good. It's so good.
I mean, seeing this the first time, I was like, oh, okay, Evil Dead. I'm like, it's got to do with, like, demons and stuff. I'm like, I should be good. We had a big meal with my cousins before we went to go see this.
Biggest mistake of your life?
Oh, my God. My stomach was so squeamish throughout the entire movie. I was just, powering down that Sprite. That was just like, oh, my God. Oh, they're doing this. Oh, they're doing that. Like, oh, man.
And it goes to the fact that it's so good because the effects, by and large, if you watch them by themselves, they look passable, kind of, for an 80s exploitation flick.
Yeah. And
today's standards, they're, like, pretty bad. But you watch it, you get involved in the characters and the story and, like, all the creepy stuff. And when he stabs, the Achilles tendon into Linda's leg, and she goes, and the twist and the blood oozes out, and it's just so, it feels so bad. And then
you see the veins, it's just like...
it's so nasty. Also, it's fun fact about that one, when, Ash is looking at her leg and he's, like, tending to the wound.
Yeah.
And you see, like, the black spiderweb thing just form all out of it, and that corrupts Linda. To do that, it had to be done by stop motion. That's how low the effect was.
Yeah.
So they had the guy come in and paint each line by hand, and the actress just had to chill for, like, 5 hours while they did all that. And I'm like, they don't make movies like that. The unions would kill you if you made that person do that. It's great.
That and stop motion is so hard. I mean...
It's incredibly hard. And there's so much in this movie. The entire, like, climax of the movie is basically stop motion.
Yeah.
Is insane. And the other thing is Joel and Ethan Coen, the Coen brothers, Oscar-winning directors, you might have heard of.
Yes.
They helped edit this movie. They were friends with Sam Raimi.
Really?
Yeah, he went to go get this movie cut, and he needed like editors, and he found the Coen brothers, who were like kind of getting started, and he was like, "Hey, can you cut this movie together for me? I'll pay you like $50 and a ham sandwich." And he's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And they helped him do it, and then when they decided to make their own movie, Blood Simple, their first movie, Sam Raimi helped them like do it. That's why if you ever watch Blood Simple, there's a lot of weird visual homages to Evil Dead that are just kind of weird, and you're like, why are they in there? And it's because Sam Raimi helped them figure out how to make the movie, because they like, he knows how to make a movie. He made Evil Dead, and that made that was a huge success. So they used him as like their like, hey Sam, like, we're trying to figure this out, how do we do this? And he would relay information to him. So this movie is great. It's awesome. Even Stephen King loves this movie.
Yeah, and that's really what gave this movie the boost.
Yeah. Stephen King was like, it's the most, I think he said it's the most original and visceral horror movie I've ever seen.
And after that, it just took off.
Yeah, this is back at the height of fucking Stephen King powers. This is 81. We had Carrie, Salem's Lot, The Shining,
Cujo.
Stand. I don't think Cujo came out yet. I think 81, we were just up to The Dead Zone, but we already had The Stand, which even at that point, people were like, this is one of the greatest novels of the fucking 70s. It's so good. I know way too much about this movie, and I love this movie. This movie's great. I love this movie.
I know you do.
I'm going to keep saying it.
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting that, you know, I understand why movie critics at the time wouldn't really give them a lot of advertising, and they were really kind of like, you know what, we're going to make this a midnight movie.
They were like, it's an exploitation horror flick that, by and large, isn't that well made in a conventional Hollywood sense.
Yeah.
In terms of independent cinema, this thing's a fucking masterpiece.
And the fact that there were just, you know, droves of people that were out there for these midnight screenings to see the film.
My dad was one of them, and that's why he knows he really likes this fucking movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my dad had seen all of them in the theaters, like when they came out.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. You know, again, one of those weird horror movies that for some reason he really dug, but my dad doesn't really like horror movies, so that's why I got these for Christmas.
And I mean, let alone when we went to go see it, it was a sold-out show.
Yeah, every scene in The Egyptian was sold out.
Yeah, so it's this thing where, yes, it was done not by Hollywood standards, but
it fucking worked.
It worked. It's loved by so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't see like a dwindling down of the fandom of The Evil Dead, because it's so popular in the horror community.
It's also a thing where this movie just ages like a fine fucking wine. All right, now hear me out here. So on the surface, it's this like really cheesy exploitation flick. There's a lot of bad acting. The effects are like goofy at best, and it's just a very strange little movie. But then you watch it and you're just like, it's like we're watching this funhouse horror experience. Like, it's like you're going through one of those like spook mazes.
Yeah, because I mean,
Universal.
especially with Linda, where all she does is laugh when she's in her demonic form.
Yeah, it's so creepy.
And with the makeup, you know, she kind of looks like a clown. So you get like this laughing kind of clown in the corner where she's getting hit with a 2x4, and she just, comes up and keeps laughing.
She keeps bouncing around like one of those like inflatable punch dolls.
Yeah, and it's annoying because you're just getting the laughing while, Ash is trying to deal with, oh, my sister's trying to kill me.
And there's a lot of just random slapstick in this. You know, when Ash is in the basement and he's like looking around, the blood pours down on his face, and it's playing like the circus music going on. And I heard this described this way, and it's actually really accurate assumption. It is the splatter genre by way of the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what's going on, because Sam Raimi, he's the kind of director who, oh yeah, I was influenced by like Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and also the Three Stooges, and The Hills Have Eyes, and also the Three Stooges, and Laurel and Hardy and all this other stuff. He's just a really talented director, and this as a first like feature, I'm so impressed because the camera work is so like aggressive and like raw and visually interesting. That how it moves is very like, it's aggressive, but it's to a point. And yeah, the acting's kind of hokey, but like Sam Raimi knows how to cast people, because the characters, even though the acting is stilted or subpar at best because they're not like all unknown actors and they were all under the assumption this movie would never see the light of day. I think half the actors in this didn't even use their real names.
Yeah, Terry, I can't think of her name. Sally. Yeah, her, the actress, I think she had just gotten her SAG card.
And didn't want to ruin it by being in this.
Didn't want to ruin it, so she gave, a different name, and then she still got in trouble because everyone saw this movie when it came out.
Yeah, it was non-union, that was another thing.
Yeah.
But even with all that, Sam Raimi has a perfect eye for casting because all the actors just look and work perfectly in the roles they're given. Even if they're not giving 110% for X, Y reasons, how they're still working, it's almost like naturally they just fit into the role.
Yeah.
It's kind of the thing where it's like, yeah, he even if he's not doing 110%, he doesn't really have to. It just works. Like Bruce Campbell, he's working, he's doing his job, but this is a young Bruce Campbell. This is before he mastered the wisecracking King of the Bee movies, like persona he became. This is him like, I have like a couple semesters of theater work behind me, and I've only been on camera in your bad 8mm films, Sam. So give me some breathing room here, and it's still good. It's so good.
It works because we have the jock character Scotty, who keeps yelling at Bruce Campbell's character Ash. I'm sorry.
Love this movie.
No, I know you do. It's just I think of Bruce Campbell, and it's like it's Ash. It's
it is a thing because this movie also falls into the kind of the Indiana Jones effect where you don't see Indy, you see Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Now it's like you don't see Ash, you see Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of played that role in a lot of his movies now, but it's neither here nor there.
But you have Scotty yelling at him, do something, you have to dismember them, which is different in a kind of zombie movie where it's just,
destroy the brain.
Destroy the brain. In this one, you got to destroy just about everything in the body.
Yeah, which kind of makes this a weird, because I know this is Undead September.
Yes.
And this might be a controversial pick because they're like, oh, they're not undead. They're possessed, they're demons possessing people, right? And it's like, kind of, sort of, but I'll be honest with you. I think Linda is super dead.
Yeah, no, they're dead. There's no doubt about that they're dead, but I think it works for Bruce Campbell's character as Ash because he's in shock. He just lost his sister. Now suddenly he loses his girlfriend. It's like...
And he's freaking out.
He's freaking out. That's why he's, back against the wall, can't really move. It's just... He's trying to process what's going on.
And that is one of the most, that is one of my favorite portrayals of, legitimate shock in a horror movie. Because in a lot of horror movies, sometimes they do the flight or flight, where it's just like, oh, something's happening, so the big-titted bimbo runs up the stairs instead of out the front door. Or, oh, the jock comes up and tries to, punch out Jason Voorhees. But in this, it's like, no, 90% of the people would just freeze the fuck up if they saw their, loved one turn into a zombie and start floating at them. They would just freeze.
Superhuman strength, just trying to destroy you. Mm-hmm. And I think it works with him because he, just gives off that I have absolutely no idea what to do.
I'm so out of my depth. I was comedic relief 20 minutes ago. What happened?
It's, also my moral compass of, this is my family. Mm-hmm. Do I kill my family or do I try to
save them?
Saving them. And there isn't.
So good.
And good. Let alone the recording that they find for the people that live, the people that lived in the cabin.
The notes of Dr. Nobi, where
it's
he's
creepy.
Reciting the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead, and it is creepy. That's a thing. A lot of the horror from this is creep factor.
Yeah.
They're walking slowly in the room and it's POV and it's opening doors and it's just really creepy. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there is visceral oh, that is just shockingly horrific.
Yeah.
The tree scene.
Yeah, that was
shocking.
Grotesque.
Exactly. Well, I ain't going to go into too much detail, but if you want to figure it out, just look up Evil Dead tree scene. That's all you need. It'll be the first video.
If guaranteed. You know, you know. And the actress, let alone her not knowing how far they actually went. And she didn't know until she was at the premiere with her mom. And she was just like...
That was a big yikes.
And I was like, wow, you really put that in the film. Okay.
Ooh, big yikes. I'm really glad this made a lot of money, but
you know,
yikes.
Seeing like recent documentaries, she's like, I've kind of grown a thicker skin and I can now laugh at it. And even
it is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and even Sam Raimi was kind of like, yeah, I think I went a little too far with the tree scene. It's like, you think?
It's one of those things where that's how you just go for it, right? Because I think that's the big pinnacle of this is, this movie is go big or go home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these guys wanted to, like, make a scene and bust out into the industry, and they wanted to make a name for themselves, and this is what they came out with, and it is great.
It was also genius on their part when they had the premiere with the investors, how they invited local high school students to fill up the auditorium.
The people who would actually go and see this movie.
Yeah, and the fact that the high school kids were so animated when they were watching it and yelling, Ash, what are you doing? Ash, don't go in there. Oh my God, don't trust Linda. And it's just like, it kind of sold to the investors.
Like, oh, we gonna make some money on this one.
You're gonna make money, but you're also actually getting a real reaction from your audience.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing. Like, this is a huge exploitation grindhouse classic of a film. This movie, in any other universe, would have been made, premiered somewhere, and forgotten in 6 weeks, and it would be a relic of the VHS era, at best. But we don't live in that apocalyptic nightmare. We live in a good reality where this movie is huge and has spawned a franchise that I hope lives on forever. I love this movie and I love this series.
And it also made a cameo in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes, it did. It did. Made it a cameo in Nightmare on Elm Street because, what is it? Nancy's watching it on the TV when she falls asleep.
Yeah, she's watching it on her little TV, and in exchange, Sam Raimi was able to get Freddy's glove, and it's in the barn. And Evil Dead 2, when Ash is, doing the whole...
Putting the new chainsaw hand on. Yeah, well, that's the thing, because... So, in Evil Dead, we see in the basement that there's a poster of The Hills Have Eyes, and it's, like, torn in half, right? And, funny enough, they got that idea by watching The Hills Have Eyes, because in The Hills Have Eyes, there's a poster of Jaws, and it's torn in half. And this goes into the weird mental mind logic, is... Sam Raimi thought, oh, that's like a visual cue that's like, hey, Jaws, that's the old horror. This is the new horror in The Hills Have Eyes. So he was like, okay, Hills Have Eyes, that was the old horror. This is the new horror. And he put that in there. And then Wes Craven, or I think Wes Craven either like talked to him about that or Sam Raimi talked about that because when they finally met in the same circle.
Yeah.
And I think Wes Craven was like, oh no, Mike did that. I just thought it looked cool. And Sam Raimi's like, what? I thought it had this deeper meaning. He's like, nah, dude, I just thought it looked cool. And he's like, huh.
Well, he's like, well, now it has a deeper meaning.
Now it has a deeper meaning.
It has a new lore.
Yeah, it's probably one of those things where he said that, and then Wes Craven was like, I mean, I didn't. No, I totally meant that. That was so on purpose. Yeah, totally, dog.
Yeah. I'm just that deep.
Oh, I'm that deep, bro. But yeah, it's
so
funny.
My poor heart. I'm like, someone tore up a Jaws poster. One of my favorite movies.
Yes, they did. And it is funny because I think the basement that they're actually shooting in is like in Michigan or is like Robert Tappard's garage.
Yeah, because they had to keep moving the houses after so long.
Yeah.
Because there was no, what was it? There was no running water or there was no heat. So it was like cold water.
No, so at the cabin?
Yeah, at the cabin.
It was an abandoned cabin. No water, no heat, no bathrooms, no nothing. If you had to take a dump, you went out in the woods.
Yeah.
It was that level of abandoned because it was free. This is... Again, this movie can't be made now.
No.
No one would show up to this film shoot. It's like, hey, we're going to take you out to the middle of the Tennessee mountains. It's like, I don't know, 10 miles from the nearest, like, anything. It's also over a bridge, and there's no lights, heat, running water, or any chance of survival if we get stuck.
I mean, I could totally see you, Alex, and Brandon doing something like this.
I mean, but like we'd have to drive out to Tennessee. But more,
Again, that doesn't seem like too far of a stretch for you guys.
Yeah, give it time then. But yeah, so the movie's fantastic. I love this movie. It's so good. I know I talk about a lot of production and like stuff going on, but that's like such an interesting facet of this movie because I know a lot about the production because I watched it so many times.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And the fact that the cabin was mysteriously burned down.
Sam Raimi continues to take credit for burning it down. But
yeah.
let's be honest, Sam. The thing was falling apart when you left. I wouldn't be surprised if some homeless guy walked out there and just lit it on fire.
I mean, let alone when they were there filming, hunters would go, past the cabin with all their dogs.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, oh, you guys are here? All right, well, we're going to go back to the hunt. See ya.
Yeah, so this... I want to know how they sold it to, like, some of the actors to, like, hey, do you want to come out with us to
this cabin?
This cabin. It'll be so cool. Yeah, you don't need to tell anybody you're going. It's fine. Don't tell anybody. It must have sounded like a serial killer, right?
You don't need to know that there's no bathrooms or heat or water.
Yeah. But that's why they had to keep moving houses.
Yeah.
And, and also it didn't have a basement. Literally that trap door led into a 6-foot hole they dug into the ground, and it was just some stairs. So more you know. So,
yeah, because they had to use 3-4 houses.
Yeah, so so they had the cabin, they had, I think it was Sam Raimi's house or Robert Tappert's house, where it was the lead down from the basement.
Yeah, it was Sam Raimi's basement. They used
Robert Tappert's garage to do the actual basement set, I think.
They had Bruce Campbell's family's cabin.
I think so. I don't know if they actually had the cabin from his family. I don't know what shots they would have used, because I know everything interior was shot at the abandoned cabin out in Tennessee.
Yeah, I was watching one of the documentaries today, and they said that they used his family's cabin, I guess in Michigan somewhere. So it's
I can't imagine for what sequence though, because I feel most of the film is pretty consistent visually in terms of the locations, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be
it's
room.
Like, we shot in here because we needed a bed.
Yeah, or, we need to elaborate more on this scene, so let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't surprise me. I mean, granted, this movie also took 3 years for them to make. It took them so long.
Yeah, it's gonna be another 2 weeks. Maybe another week. Maybe...
Come back next month.
Yeah.
We need to do some color correction here. It'll be real quick, though. But it's really good. It's really good. I love this movie.
What else do you want to talk about from this film?
Where do you want to start? Okay. So we talked a lot about the production. I think we talked a bit about the actors.
Yeah.
Story wise, how much did we get on that one? Because the story in this is really fun. It's really great. It's awesome.
It's fun, but it's also a simple story. It's just
incredibly simple.
They go away for the weekend, and this happens. I think in the course of 24 hours,
more or less. Yeah, about 24 hours. I
don't even think 24 hours, because they get there, golden hour, and then we end at sunrise.
Yeah, it's just through the night. Blah.
Yeah, it's 12 hours of just sheer horror.
Yeah, and it's a really good way to do it, because there's no slow moments. It just goes.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, we have the group of teenagers or college students. They're going out to the cabin to unwind for whatever reason. They get there, they discover this ancient Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead. Mm-hmm. Now, this cabin was used by a researcher, and it was been abandoned for so long that no one's able to find it. And then, boom, they raise the dead, this demonic force presence that chases them, kills them off one by one, until there's only one left to survive to dawn. And that's the story. It's it. It's not that hard to really relay, but the movie is so much fun. It's 85 minutes of just glory.
And it's just interesting, whenever they listen to the recordings from the doctor, how it's just, we found this book, and it's got weird markings to, my wife starting to show symptoms of something, and, well, my wife has turned, and now I've had to dismember her to, completely get her to stop attacking me.
Yes, I have buried her in the basement. And it's great because that plays into this found footage thing. Mm-hmm. And I feel that probably had an inspiration on certain video games where you find audio logs of previous inhabitants of whatever colony, level, whatever you're playing. And it's really fun because that implication of the Nobis thing is kind of like we talked about in The Mummy last week with the Magi, where it's the implication of what these guys have to have done and performed and do to protect Hymenoptera. The implication of what did Dr. Dr. Nobi do? Yeah. Where's he? Is he dead? Like, what got him? He killed his wife. Is there something else out there? Is he possessed? Is he going to show up? Did he make it back into town? But is he a crazy person now? Because we didn't see a car. And this place has been abandoned. How long ago was this?
Yeah.
It's the implication of just the recording is a whole other movie.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. I love this movie.
I know you do.
It's great.
I mean, you just recently bought the Book of the Dead.
The Book of the Dead? Oh, are you talking about my copy of the Necronomicon? Okay.
Yeah.
I that wasn't recent. That was years ago.
No, the one that we got from Frankincense. The little, like, pocket-sized one.
Oh, yeah. The Necronomicon, the H.P. Lovecraft, like, Necronomicon. Yeah, I got that at Frankincense. Because it was like $6. Yeah. But it doesn't look like anything from, like, this movie.
Oh, no.
It's literally like, it's the Necronomicon. It's written by H.P. Lovecraft and blah, blah, blah. It's like, a kind of, like, occult joke kind of thing. Because Necronomicon's not a real book.
No.
In fact, Sam Raimi, he got the idea of the Necronomicon from H.P. Lovecraft, like, lore. Yeah. And he's like, that sounds like a cool name. We'll make it like that. Bound in human flesh, written in human blood. And the Necronomicon doesn't exist. But somebody in the 70s made a Necronomicon as an in-joke for all the horror nerds and occult nerds. Yeah. And that's what I got. But a couple years ago, I was at a convention, I think it was WonderCon, and somebody was selling a book, and it was the Necronomicon from Evil Dead. It was all done up. It looked like it was like made of leather, and it had like all the face in it and stuff like that. I picked up, it's like paper mache, like the outside is paper mache, and I think it was like $20, and I bought it, and the inside is like Grimm's Fairy Tales. So I have a Necronomicon, which if you open it up is the Grimm's Fairy Tale, so it's a fairy tale book. Yeah. But it looks like the book from Evil Dead, which is awesome. Yeah. I love this movie. I'm gonna end again every phrase I'm ending with. I love this movie.
I know.
So yeah. But yeah, the story in this is great. I love it because it's so simple. We have a good protagonist, the antagonist, the mysterious, like, demonic presence. This is a good example of a villain that you don't really need to have a goal. Its goal is that it's evil. Yeah. But it's a sadistic kind of evil because it's taking pleasure in what it's doing to these people, and it's possessing them. It's making them do these horrible things, and the other implication is that it's not a person, it's just a thing. It's a force that is doing this.
It's an entity.
It's an entity, and it's so mysterious and it's wonderful, and I love it. It's great.
Let alone when Ash is trying to muster up the courage to shoot Linda, and the demon is able to switch back to human form of her, where she's crying and she's like, please save me, help me to not turn back into that. And then bastards. And then she flips the switch again, and she's laughing, and she's the person. So it's
and it's great because at that point we realize, the demons aren't even trying to like kill him; they're just fucking with him. Yeah, they're just playing with him, and it's like that's so like horrifying. It's this thing that's so much more powerful than them, and it's just playing with them.
And it's because demonology has been around for forever. Yeah. And it's just the fact that even though we know a bit more, we still don't know. It's like, how? What? It's like, I don't get...
It's a whole fantasy thing at that point, but it is so just, like, off-putting and creepy. Yeah. And it even goes into, like, the Sam Raimi, it being called the Necronomicon is probably, like, on purpose, and this thing is supposed to be an unknowable, like, entity that is so above mankind we can't even fathom it, like in the Cthulhu mythos. Yeah. And it's just really interesting, and it's done as just this splatter exploitation flick, and it's awesome.
I think my favorite thing in this movie, I mean, apart from Ash, after this I walked out of there loving Bruce Campbell. I was just like, oh my god, he's amazing. As all should. Yes. My absolute favorite thing is what I call like the demon cam.
Yeah, where they're running through the woods, and it's like this really low POV, and it's going over stuff and through things, and it's implied to be the Thikalindathu demon that's chasing these people around, and it's the actual entity, and it's so good because of how they did it, because it looks so like crazy, like they had to get like a Steadicam up, right, and they had to like have him like sprint through the woods and go over all these things. Man, they must have had a really like athletic cameraman or in a really steady handheld. And it's like, no, they stuck it on a 2x4. They screwed the camera down. And they had two guys on either end just run. And it's awesome. And at the end, where
it's right over the water.
It's right over the water. That one they actually, I think it was they were on a boat or they were on two rowboats. And that was like they were being drifted through the water and holding the camera like way out in front of them.
And they just sped it up in post.
Yeah. No, I think it was like live. I think they might have sped it up in post. I can't really remember. It might have also been like they were just in waders and just walking through the water. It wouldn't surprise me either way. But I was talking about the ending of the movie where we see the force just come down the hill, crash through the cabin doors, and it's smashing the doors open. It comes out the front door and it like runs straight into Ash's like screaming face, and then that cuts the movie. That's the end of the movie. In production, what they did, Sam Raimi mounted it onto a motorcycle.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They told Bruce Campbell, this is going to be the last thing we shoot because this might actually hurt you and we won't be able to finish the movie. So this is the last thing we shot. So they got on, mounted it, and Sam Raimi literally just is driving this motorcycle probably like 40, 60 miles an hour down this hill. When he gets to the doors, they have a signal where somebody is yanking the breakaway doors away so Sam Raimi doesn't just, crash into it.
Yeah.
So the doors are flying off. They're flying off. And then it gets to Bruce Campbell, and Sam Raimi goes up and he slams the brake and still rams into Bruce Campbell doing like 30. I think that's why he has the scar on his jaw now, because I think it broke his jaw.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's either this broke his jaw or when they were doing Evil Dead 2, the opening sequence in there where he's flying through the woods and he's being spun around and he's screaming, ah. I think that might have been where he broke his jaw, because in one of these he broke his jaw and that's why he has the scar now.
I mean, let alone he takes a beating in this movie too.
Yeah, it's also funny because I listened to an interview with Bruce Campbell and he explained that's half the reason Sam hired me is because I was really good at beating myself up on a camera. Because he said that in his younger years, I was able to like grab the back of my shirt, pull myself forward, and do just like a standing like backdrop. And that's like why he why he really wanted him, because he knew he could beat the shit out of Bruce Campbell and he would keep on going.
I mean, he gets an ass kicking, he gets drenched in blood.
Yeah.
The milk thing I never understood. I mean, let alone, I've only seen the movie like twice.
Yeah.
So it's like, I didn't understand why, the demons like projectile milk.
It's supposed to be this, that's the thing. It's supposed to be this like, oh, it's this ominous, it's blood, it's like pus, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's a low budget production, so they just use milk. But the fun thing about the blood is because, low budget production, they just made blood and it's just corn syrup and food coloring, all that shit. And Bruce Campbell said because again, they're in the middle of the woods. There's no running water. There's no bathrooms and all that stuff. They had like a barrel that they filled with water so you can get stuff. But that was it. So when Bruce Campbell's drenched in blood, and it's like a 3-hour drive back to town, the stuff would dry on him. He had to jump into the shower fully clothed because the blood fused to his skin, and he had to like rinse the clothes off, and then when he took them off, they would stand up. Yeah, like fine.
Didn't he also like break a shirt?
He snapped a shirt in half. Yeah. Like literally, like I think he got home and like he like decided like like sit down, and he fell asleep. So he woke up like a couple hours later, and the blood completely dried. And he got up and he like rolled his shoulder, and you hear the crack, and the sleeve snapped off. Yeah. And I'm like, Bruce Campbell, you've been through so much.
That, and he also had to ride in the back of the truck because he was just covered in the blood.
Yeah, you couldn't let him. Yeah, he couldn't sit on the car seat because if he dried, he would stick to the car seat. Yeah, and they'd have to like soak him to get him out. That's an interesting thing, is that he went through so much to just like be in this like kind of okay like horror flick, and it's a masterpiece. I love this movie.
You do. Is there anywhere else you want to go with this, or are you ready to cap off for the night?
I mean, I could keep going. I could talk about this movie forever, but I can tell you're ready to go to bed.
I'm good. It's just I want to make sure that you get the most out of your Evil Dead episode.
I could keep going. I could talk about the video game, A Fistful of Boomstick, which I played on the PlayStation 2. It was pretty good. It was okay. I could talk a lot about this movie. I love the movie. I love the series. I love the franchise. Would highly recommend. 2 thumbs up. It's gonna be great when we get to September, and I can tell you its placement on my top 10 list. But it's gonna be fun. But Miss Boo, I think I'm about ready.
Okay, and I surprisingly really enjoyed the movie after watching it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was cringe the whole way the first time watching it. It was just
cringe, not in the current form. Cringe is in physical cringe, right?
Yes, physical cringe. I mean, I was just moving around my seat. I was just like, oh my god,
squirming around.
Yeah, I couldn't handle it.
Fun fact, that happened to David the first time he watched Reanimator, which we did for our H.P. Lovecraft episode like last year. And he said, he's like, oh, that movie, I squirmed the entire, 90 minutes. That movie was just awkward. I'm like, it's so good. They're both so good. Evil Dead is a masterpiece.
But if you can get through the first Evil Dead, watch Evil Dead 2, watch Army of Darkness.
Watch the series, watch everything. It's all good.
Yeah, I haven't jumped into the series yet. I probably will soon.
It's definitely Army of Darkness, Ash.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It has the right tone. It's executive produced by Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell. It's in good hands, and unfortunately it got canceled, but it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable for what I watched of it.
So I'd give it a 2 thumbs up too. And I think we're ready to finish up our episode today. But
I think we are.
Should we spoil next week's episode?
I think you should, because I think next week's episode is gonna be kind of fun.
It is going to be, not kind of fun, it's going to be a lot of fun because it's an Edgar Wright movie.
It is.
And Edgar Wright was really inspired by Sam Raimi after watching Evil Dead.
He was.
And I don't think if there was Evil Dead, we would get Shaun of the Dead, which we're watching next week.
Which I cannot wait for. I actually already watched this movie for the double feature, but that was one of the early episodes, and we had a lot of technical difficulties with that one, so it's going to be nice for me to get another fresh take on this.
I mean, I love Shaun of the Dead. We did our Hot Fuzz episode a couple of months ago.
It's one of the only films I've ever said, I don't want to spoil the ending, because if you haven't seen it, it makes the movie so much better.
Yeah, and Shaun of the Dead is just my favorite of the Edgar Wright movies, the Cornetto trilogy, but I'm so excited to talk about it. I'm excited to quote it.
I'm sorry, Boo.
What? Oh, God.
Love you too. All right, Boo, but where can they find us?
Well, if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, just about everywhere where podcasts are streamed. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at the Film Club Podcasts. And I believe we're also at a different location if you want to listen to us.
Yes, you can go to our YouTube channel, In the Frame, which you can find this podcast, the Film Club Podcast, as well as our other podcast, including the Double Feature Pictures Show with me and David. We talk about 2 films, bring them together, talk about them, compare them, contrast them, go deep into themes, and, generally enjoy a good double feature. And also the Film Odyssey podcast that me and my brother do, where we go through the AFI Top 100, counting down, looking for the best film ever made. And with that, Boo, anything else?
Well, stay tuned and stay spooky.
Peace.